Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Pratiwi Rachmita. I'm from Group 1. Today I want to presentation about introduction to instructional design. Okay, the first slide is about what is instructional design. Instructional design is about the organization of content, sequencing of learning, assessing achievement, and the preparation of sound instructional material so that teaching can move forward. Instructional design, instructional system design, and instructional system technology are all terms that are applied to the of applying systematic scientific method to instruction. Next slide is about the AD model. The AD model was developed by the Department of Defense in 1975 in Clark in 2010 and consists of the following component. There have 5 parts. The first is about analysis, the process that clarify what is to be learned by what population. And the second is about design, the stage implementation, the delivery of learning material to the learner. And the last is about evaluation, the stage at which the entry process is evaluated or summative evaluation, including assessing learning outcomes. It was seen as fairly linear in nature, but in later years, many adaptive models have taken a more cyclical or iterative view of the process. The beauty of the model is that each instructional designer can interpret the step in the process in a way that best fits their organization. It is highly adaptive. The next slide is about principle. Another way to view instructional design is through the lens of principle. Because of the proliferation of instructional design theories and models, some ID scholars revealed in 1999, Merrill in 2002 have analyzed this theory and model and discovered the common underlying principle that many hold in common. Merrill's first principle of instructional in Merrill in 2002 is a well-regarded example of principles that are required for effective instructional from Merrill's first principle of instruction. The next slide is about principle. Another way to view instructional design is through the lens of principle. Because of the proliferation of instructional design theories and models, some ID scholars Regul in 1999, Maris 2002 have analyzed these theories and models and discovered the common underlying principle the many hold in common. Maris' first principle of instructional in 2002 is a well-regarded example of principles that are required for effective instructional. Mary's first principle of instructional. Okay, there have a 5-part. The first is about learning is promoted when learners are engaged in solving real-world problems. And number 2, learning is promoted when existing knowledge is active as a foundation for new knowledge. Number 3, learning is promoted when new knowledge is demonstrated to the learner. Number 4, learning to promote when new knowledge is applied by the learner. And the last is learning is promoted when new knowledge is integrated into the learner's work. This principle strongly correlated with psychological learning theories, particularly those of constructive theory, and all relate to how the learning environment can best be structured to meet learning needs. Next slide is about Gagne's 9 events of instructional. Similarly, Robert Gagne in 1985, 9 events of instruction correlate with how the cognitive process in the brain affect learning. He conceived these 9 events to illustrate how teacher can be facilitate learning. The first gain to attention of the learner is to prepare for learning and to motivate the learner. The second is about inform learner of the objective is to prepare for learning and to be explicit about learning to help integrate new material into exciting knowledge. Number 4, present new content material. What is to be learner prescribe the content delivery. Number 5, provide guide learning to aid students in practicing and integrated knowledge. Number 6, elicit performance learning demonstrate their recently acquired knowledge. Provide feedback to the learner to help the learner to improve performance. And number 7, assess performance to evaluate the learning performance. And the last number is about enhance retention and transfer of new knowledge to further aid student integrating knowledge. The next slide is about principle for good practice in undergraduate education. Another set of highlight regret principle is Chekery and Gamson in 1987 7 principle for good practice in undergraduate education. While initially focused on college undergraduate, these principles are equally applicable to learners of all ages in variety of environment. Good practice in undergraduate education. There have 7 parts from good practice in undergraduate education. Number 1 is about encourage content between student and faculty. And number 2, develop reciprocity and cooperation among students. Number 3, encourage active learning. Number 4, give prompt feedback. Number 5, emphasize time and tasks. And number 6, communicate high expectations. And the last number is about respect diverse talent and ways of learning. While similar to the other principle that we have reviewed in terms of the inclusion of some specific step in the instruction process, the 7 principle also includes some components of effective learning that have not been addressed specifically in the others 2 examples. For example, the inclusion of the description of the interpersonal relationship in number 1 and 2 help to describe how instruction should be designed to facilitate ideal student-teacher and student-student interaction. Number 6 is related to student motivation, and number 7 address student intelligence and learning style. It actively involves the learner in employing learning strategies such as a mnemonic or advanced organized. They help structure and enhance their own learning. The next slide is about learning theories. There are 3 major perspectives or schools of thought and learning. They are the behaviorist perspective, cognitive perspective, and constructive perspective. And Atmer and Newby in 1993, this perspective have developed historically over time and are often viewed as an evolutionary continue. Okay, number 1 is about behavior perspective. The behavior perspective of learning focus on rewarding or reinforcing desired response in the learning environment. And the second is about cognitive perspective. The cognitive perspective, as the name implies, focus on the cognitive process that occur in the brain as learning occurs. And the last number is about constructive perspective. The constructive perspective focus on how learner construct meaning as they learn. The next slide is about library-specific learning models. While most of the discussed in this article has come from literature in the field of educational psychology and instructional design, there are several theorists whose writing relate directly to library and learning. Carol Kuhlthau in 1991, research focusing on the information seeking process or ISP is probably the most familiar of the library specific model and discussed here. Unlike many other models, Kuhlthau pays special attention to learn, feeling, and evaluate during each step in the 18 Indian Library for 13 number 1 process, the six basic steps of Kuhlthau ISPR. Okay, the first is about initiation. Learning began the research process by recognizing a need for information disk. And number 2 is about step is characterized by feeling of uncertainty or apprehension. Selection, the learner began by selecting a topic to research and being set to begin the research process. Feeling of optimism or excitement may accompany this step. And the third is about exploration. As the research process began in camps, the learner may again feel frustrated or uncertain as information seeking products too little or too much in the way or result, or if the information found doesn't fit with the learner exciting knowledge or belief. Number 4, formulation. Has the learner gathered enough information and begin to focus their information seeking, they again feel confident and their goals become more clear. And the 5 is about collection. This stage is where most information gathering takes place once the focus of the research is clear and well developed. At this point, the learner will be efficient and effective in finding relevant research on their subject and integrating them into their own body of knowledge. And the last number about presentation. This is the stage at which the learner prepares to present the information to others in the form of a paper, presentation, or some other use of the findings. If the research has gone well, feeling of satisfaction, confidence, and relief are prevalent. One final model that can be easily adopted for library user education is Keller in 1987 or ARCS model. This simple model of motivation consists of they have 4 parts. The first is about attention. Is learner can only learn if you gain and keep their attention, and be relevant. As learner stay motivated and thus learn best when content is relevant to their interests and need. C. Confident as learners learn best when the content is structured so that they feel that they can be successful. And the last is about satisfaction. Learners need to feel that they have gained some sort of satisfaction from the learning experience, either in enjoyment or in excitement. Working to keep students motivated is crucial to their learning, so it is important to design the content and learning environment to best achieve that goals. Okay, I think enough from my presentation today. If you have any question, you can share your question on the group.